So, imagine strapping yourself to a colossal helium balloon.
Okay, terrifying start, but I'm with you.
Right. And you're ascending to the absolute edge of space, like way up there where the sky turns from that normal blue to just a terrifying infinite black.
Yeah, the literal edge of the atmosphere.
Exactly. And then you just step off into a free fall where you are hitting like 1,000 miles per hour.
Which is just, it's mind-boggling to even conceptualize.
It really is. But here's the kicker for you listening right now. Imagine you aren't doing this for the adrenaline. And you aren't doing it for some, multi-million-dollar corporate energy drink sponsorship or to stroke your own ego.
Which is usually the case with these things, yeah.
Exactly. You are doing it because a 4-year-old girl gave you an order.
It is such an incredible hook.
It is. So welcome to another deep dive. Today we are looking at this extraordinary set of documents for a global campaign called Jump for the Planet.
And these aren't just press releases. We have actual blueprints, logistical roadmaps, letters of intent from major aerospace engineering firms, and deeply personal memoirs.
Yeah, all outlining what has to be one of the most audacious humanitarian missions ever conceived. Because the goal of this deep dive isn't just to look at an extreme sports stunt, right?
No, not at all.
It's to understand how one man's, profound grief and his professional background gave birth to a mission to build a worldwide system of eco-sustainable shelters for climate and war refugees.
It's an operation that basically sits right at the intersection of extreme aerospace engineering, global geopolitical logistics, and profound human grief.
Yeah, perfectly said.
We're going to examine how a very localized, deeply personal tragedy became the catalyst for this proposed worldwide infrastructure, one that's literally designed to house tens of thousands of refugees.
Right, and the mechanism to fund all of this is, like I just described, a record-breaking parachute jump from 45 kilometers above the Earth.
Yes. But before we get into the crazy aerospace stuff...
The palm sweating stuff, yeah.
Exactly. We really need to look at the creator of this initiative, Thomas Kozlowski, because, to understand how someone jumps from the edge of space, you really need to understand who is jumping and why.
Right, because when you read his resume, it feels almost like a contradiction.
Oh, completely.
Like, he is a psychologist, he is an active mountain rescuer with GOPR, which is the Polish Mountain Rescue Service.
Right, a highly respected organization.
Yeah, and he's also a specialist in crisis intervention, meaning, he is the guy who shows up to stabilize the psychological fallout for victims of severe trauma.
Which is incredibly heavy work.
It is. But then, simultaneously, he's this elite skydiver and tandem pilot with over 3,200 jumps.
It is an incredibly specific, almost paradoxical combination of skill sets,
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I need to push back a little on the whole extreme athlete narrative here.
Go for it.
Usually when we look at extreme athletes, there is a strong element of escapism. They're trying to escape the world, chasing a dopamine or adrenaline high to block out the noise.
Right, chasing the thrill.
But a mountain rescuer and a trauma psychologist, they are trained to run toward the people who need help. They run toward the noise.
That's a great point. They show up on the worst day of someone's life.
Exactly. So how do these two entirely different worlds, extreme skydiving and trauma psychology, how do they intersect? Like, how does he reconcile the inherent selfishness of jumping out of planes with a career rooted in acute empathy?
Well, what's fascinating here is how he marries these skills. That tension you're highlighting is exactly what makes Thomas Kozlowski's approach so effective.
How so?
He recognized that extreme sports, by their very nature, are a spectacle.
Right.
They demand human attention.
True. People can't look away from danger.
Exactly. So what he did was take his extraordinarily high risk tolerance and redirect it entirely toward humanitarian logistics. He realized he could capture global attention through extreme physical endurance and then immediately convert that attention into tangible financial aid.
Oh, wow. So using the spectacle as a tool.
Precisely. And we can see this methodology proven in his earlier charitable projects, specifically Project 48 and Project 100.
Oh, man. Let's talk about the physical reality of those projects because reading the numbers, they sound abstract until you break down what they actually demand of a human body.
They're brutal. Let's start with Project 48.
Right. So in Project 48, Thomas completed 48 parachute jumps in a single day. And he dedicated each jump to a severely ill person to raise money for their medical treatment.
And to understand the sheer brutality of that, you really have to look at the physiological toll of just one skydive.
Right. I mean, it's not just a casual fall.
Not at all. You were dealing with rapid barometric pressure changes,
Yeah.
the physical G-force shock of the parachute deploying, which yanks your whole body.
Oh, yeah, the harness digging in.
Exactly. Plus the muscular strain of steering and landing, and maybe most importantly, the intense neurological focus required to not make a fatal error.
And he is doing that, then hitting the ground, repacking or swapping gear, climbing right back into a loud, vibrating aircraft, and doing it again.
48 times.
It's insane. It's just a grueling cycle of hypoxia, adrenaline spikes, and physical battering.
But it worked. Through pledges and sponsorships driven by this sheer feat of endurance, Project 48 raised $50,000 for charity.
$50,000. That's incredible.
Which is a huge achievement, but he immediately recognized that the formula could be scaled, so he executed Project 100.
Oh boy, 100 jumps in a day.
100 parachute jumps in a single day. I mean, this transcends extreme sports. This is an ultra marathon in the sky.
I can't even imagine. The sheer nitrogen buildup in the bloodstream.
Yes, the dehydration, the total exhaustion of the central nervous system over a continuous 12 to 14-hour period of jumping.
Just constantly spiking your cortisol and adrenaline for half a day straight.
Right, but that extreme escalation captured even more attention, and Project 100 raised $150,000.
So he clearly has the blueprint. He knows how to trade his own physical suffering and his expertise for charitable capital.
Exactly.
But, when you read through these source documents, the money and the records, they're completely overshadowed by a singular pivotal moment.
Yeah, this is where the story shifts.
Right, because the emotional core of this entire stratospheric endeavor isn't rooted in a desire to break a world record. It's rooted in jump number 24 of Project 48.
Yes, the jump dedicated to a 4-year-old girl named Marta.
Yeah, the documents refer to her affectionately as Marta 24, and she was battling an inoperable brainstem tumor.
It's just devastating.
It really is. The narrative zeroes in on June 21, 2017 at a skydiving drop zone. Thomas and Marta are sitting alone in an airplane during a break.
Right, taking a moment between the chaos.
Yeah, and you have this seasoned trauma expert and elite athlete, and she is this tiny, severely ill child. And the detail he remembers, the thing he actually wrote down, is her telling him that he should only eat dark chocolate because the other kinds are bad for his health.
It's such a profound juxtaposition, isn't it? You have a man who regularly throws himself out of airplanes being given health and safety advice by a 4-year-old facing a terminal diagnosis.
It's beautiful, but so sad.
Thomas actually notes in his writings that he felt entirely disarmed by her innocence, like he felt insecure, as if he were sitting in the presence of the greatest authority in the world.
Wow. And that reverence, I think, really sets the stage for the heartbreak that follows.
It does.
Because the timeline he provides for April 16th, roughly a year later, is agonizing to read, especially because you're reading the internal monologue of a man trained in crisis psychology who is utterly failing to manage his own panic.
Right. All this training just goes out the window.
Exactly. So he messages Marta's mother, Justina, suggesting that he and his wife, Paulina, come visit in a few weeks.
And Justina replies, "You won't make it. She is leaving right now."
God, the blunt force of that text message.
Just like a physical blow.
Thomas immediately replies that they will come in the morning, and Justina tells him that Marta might not make it through the night.
Just terrifying.
The next morning at 8 a.m., Thomas messages again. And Justina says, "We don't know what's happening, but she is still with us."
Which triggers this immediate frantic scramble. Because Thomas and Paulina have their own 1.5-year-old daughter, Anya, with them.
The documents really emphasize this detail, and it feels crucial from a psychological standpoint.
Oh, absolutely. The visceral empathy of being a parent is in hyperdrive here. They're forced to manage the mundane reality of a healthy toddler who, hates car rides.
Right, trying to soothe the crying baby.
While simultaneously rushing toward the bedside of a dying child. It's just an impossible emotional state.
And they have a 350-kilometer drive ahead of them. Thomas describes the actual physical sensation of the anxiety. Again, this is a guy who manages trauma victims for a living, but he notes feeling a persistent, severe stabbing pain in his stomach. A gnawing hunger.
A literal gut reaction to the stress.
He's obsessively checking the Messenger app to see if his updates are being read, just staring at that gray icon, feeling the agonizing stretch of the highway.
Time just dilates in those situations.
It really does. At one point, he's rushing his wife in a way he admits is entirely out of character for him, and she has to ground him. She just tells him, "She will wait for you, you will make it."
And they do. They finally arrive at 15:40, so late in the afternoon. Thomas describes entering the room and seeing Marta, whom he calls a tiny crumb, surrounded by her parents.
Oh, that phrase, a tiny crumb, it just breaks you.
It really does.
He lies down right next to her. He leans in close, kisses her on the cheek, and whispers into her ear. And this right here is the moment the entire global campaign is born. He whispers, "Good morning, my love. It's me, your Uncle Tomek. I came to promise you that I will always take care of children like you."
I will always take care of children like you.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it is not a metaphor.
No, not at all.
It is a binding psychological contract he made with himself in the presence of a dying child. I mean, Thomas realized his life's mission in that room. The jump isn't for him. Every subsequent logistical, engineering, and financial decision in the Jump for the Planet documents traces its origin back to that exact whisper.
Which fundamentally reframes how we look at the rest of this deep dive.
Right.
When you realize that the motivation isn't a thrill seeker's ego, but the desperate need to fulfill a promise, the insane ambition of the project suddenly makes total logical sense.
Yeah, it grounds the spectacle in profound humanity.
But, whispering a promise in a hospital room is the easy part, relatively speaking. The terrifying question is the logistics. Like, how does a single charity actually build a safety net for vulnerable children on a global scale?
Well, Thomas's conclusion, drawn straight from his background in psychological crisis intervention, was that before you can address a child's trauma, you must first secure their physical environment.
That makes sense. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Exactly. You cannot treat a traumatized nervous system if the body is still in a state of chronic environmental threat. You have to start with the most fundamental human need, which is shelter.
And the scale of that need is just staggering. The campaign documents focus specifically on climate and war refugees, highlighting children who have been orphaned and left homeless.
The primary beneficiaries of this campaign, yeah.
And the geopolitical reality they cite is that, on average, 50,000 people lose their homes daily due to armed conflict or natural disasters exacerbated by climate change.
Let's really break down the reality of that statistic, because 50,000 people a day equates to roughly 18 million people displaced every single year.
18 million. A year. It's unfathomable.
It is. And the current global response to this is largely reliant on canvas tents, tarpaulins, and makeshift tin shelters. From a logistical standpoint, these are temporary band-aids that often become permanent slums.
Right. People end up living in them for decades.
Exactly. And they offer no temperature regulation, no real defense against extreme weather, and they quickly become vectors for disease.
So Thomas is proposing a complete overhaul of how we house displaced populations.
Yes.
He wants to use the funds raised by the Jump to manufacture modular, eco-sustainable homes. The documents detail that each functional unit is designed to include a bathroom, a kitchen, and a dedicated sleeping space for 2 adults and 3 children.
And the engineering philosophy relies entirely on existing, widely available technologies and recycled materials. Specifically, they're talking about upcycled plastics and sustainable composites.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The brilliant part of the design is the modularity. The documents explicitly use a Lego block analogy.
Right, the Lego concept.
But wait, hold on. Legos are easy because they fit together on, a living room rug. We are talking about manufacturing and shipping thousands of modular homes into active war zones.
Or across borders with hostile bureaucracies.
Exactly. Or into areas entirely flattened by hurricanes. So how does this design actually solve the supply chain nightmare?
Well, that is the exact problem the modular design aims to solve. Because traditional disaster housing requires heavy machinery, specialized labor, and raw materials shipped to the site.
Right, you need cement, trucks, cranes.
Exactly. But these modular units are designed to be flat-packed, meaning you can fit multiple units into a single standard shipping container, which drastically reduces the carbon footprint and the cost of transport.
Oh, okay. Like flat-pack furniture, but for a whole house.
Yes. And once on site, the Lego aspect means the components snap or lock together using localized, unskilled labor. You do not need a crane or a cement mixer to assemble them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You completely bypass the need for heavy infrastructure in places where the infrastructure has just been destroyed.
Exactly.
And the modularity isn't just about shipping, right? It is about scalability on the ground.
Yes, very much so.
Like if you have a single displaced family, one module is a home. But if you are managing a massive refugee camp, you can physically lock 3, 4, or 10 of these together to create a larger communal space.
Exactly. You can scale the architecture to match the community's needs in real time. You can snap dozens of these units together to create temporary kindergartens, schools, dormitories, and medical clinics right in the middle of a displacement camp.
Wow. And this is where I see his psychology background bleeding directly into the engineering blueprints.
How do you mean?
Well, think about what happens to a child's brain when their home is bombed or washed away. Their amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, is completely hijacked.
Right. They are in constant fight or flight.
Exactly. They lose all sense of executive function because they have lost all predictability. By designing these units to snap together into schools and communal spaces, Thomas is basically trying to biologically downregulate a traumatized nervous system.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to look at it.
He is using architecture to provide routine, safety, and a physical boundary against the chaos outside.
It is literal environmental psychology applied to disaster relief.
Yeah.
Because a door that locks, a roof that doesn't leak, and a dedicated space for education fundamentally alter a refugee's psychological trajectory.
Absolutely.
But the vision goes even further. The documents outline a closed-loop, zero-emission economic system. This isn't just about dropping a shipping container in a field and walking away. It's meant to restore dignity.
Right. The documents detail a transfer of knowledge. They want the assembly process to actually be an educational program.
Precisely. They intend to teach the displaced populations how to assemble the modules, how to maintain the solar or water recycling systems integrated into the units, and how to function within a microeconomy that doesn't rely on external fossil fuels.
So you are not just giving them a box to sleep in.
No. You are giving them a trade, an education, and absolute ownership over their immediate environment. It replaces terrible conditions with clean, safe environments that allow for a return to normalcy.
It is a beautiful, deeply researched, and highly functional plan, but it brings us to a massive, unavoidable hurdle.
Funding.
Exactly. You have the psychological motivation, the promise to little Marta. You have the engineering solution, the flat-packed, zero-emission Lego homes.
Oh.
But creating a global supply chain to manufacture, ship, and deploy these units requires an astronomical amount of capital.
Billions, eventually.
Yeah, and to generate that kind of funding, you need the entire planet to stop what they are doing, pay attention, and open their wallets. Like, how do you get the entire planet to look at you at the same time?
Which is the core utility of the extreme spectacle. You have to manufacture an event so globally captivating that it transcends national borders and localized news cycles.
And the strategy outlined in the documents points directly to the Felix Baumgartner jump in 2012, the Red Bull Stratos mission, where he jumped from roughly 39 kilometers up.
Right. The Baumgartner jump is the ultimate proof of concept for capturing global attention. Millions of people watched that live. It saturated traditional media, social media, scientific discourse.
Everyone was talking about it.
Everyone, and the financial return on that attention was astronomical. However, in Baumgartner's case, the vast majority of that financial benefit went to brand exposure for a massive corporate energy drink sponsor.
Right. Red Bull got the ultimate commercial.
Exactly. But Thomas Kozlowski looked at that and saw a mechanism that could be hijacked for charity. Because remember, 2 years after Baumgartner, Alan Eustace, who was a vice president at Google, actually broke Baumgartner's record.
Oh, yeah. He jumped from 41.4 kilometers in a project called Stratex.
Right. But Eustace did it incredibly quietly. It was a technical demonstration, not a media circus.
Most people don't even know his name, even though he holds the record.
Exactly. So Kozlowski's strategy is to marry the advanced, proven aerospace technology of the Eustace jump with the aggressive, global media saturation of the Baumgartner jump.
Ah, best of both worlds.
Yes. But instead of funneling the resulting capital into a corporate marketing department, Jump for the Planet redirects every single dollar into manufacturing the modular homes.
It's brilliant. So let's get into the mechanics of this jump. Because asking someone to jump from 45 kilometers is asking them to navigate an environment that is actively trying to kill them in a dozen different ways.
It is incredibly hostile.
We are talking about the upper stratosphere here. How do you engineer a system to safely transport a human being to the edge of space and bring them back down?
Well, the logistics and partnerships outlined in the campaign documents are incredibly rigorous. This is a full-blown aerospace operation requiring roughly 120 specialized personnel. But the linchpin of the entire endeavor is a formalized partnership with Paragon Space Development Corporation.
Oh, right. The documents actually include the letters of intent from Paragon.
Yes.
And for context for you listening, Paragon is a heavyweight in aerospace engineering. They specialize in extreme environment life support systems. They were the actual architects and primary systems integrators for Alan Eustace's 41.4-kilometer jump.
Right, they have the proven track record.
Yeah, the spacesuit they designed for him is currently sitting in the Smithsonian.
Which is amazing. And having Paragon oversee the design, preparation, and execution of the jump provides immense technical credibility.
It's not just a guy in a garage building a balloon.
Definitely not. Let's break down exactly what they have to engineer, starting with the ascent. Because Thomas will not be riding inside a heavy, pressurized rocket capsule. He will be physically tethered to and lifted by a massive, highly specialized helium balloon.
Okay, I want to focus on the physics of that balloon for a second because it's wild. As you ascend, atmospheric pressure drops rapidly, right? So, according to Boyle's law, as the external pressure decreases, the gas inside the balloon will expand. So the balloon they launch from the ground in New Mexico is going to look somewhat deflated when it takes off, right?
Exactly. It contains only a fraction of its total capacity at sea level. It looks long and wrinkly.
Right. But as Thomas ascends over the course of 2.5 hours, that balloon will expand to contain millions of cubic feet of helium.
By the time he reaches 35 kilometers, the balloon will be roughly the size of a football stadium.
A football stadium?
Yes, stretching the envelope to a fraction of a millimeter in thickness.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the listener? Put yourself in Thomas's position for that 2.5-hour ascent. You are dangling beneath this expanding leviathan of plastic and gas. The atmospheric noise fades into absolute dead silence because there isn't enough air density to carry sound waves.
Complete silence.
The sky transitions from blue to the deep black of the cosmos, and you can visibly see the curvature of the Earth. But beyond the visual awe, the physical environment is instantly lethal.
Yes. Which is why the Paragon suit is not just protective gear, it is a wearable, self-contained spacecraft. It must perform 3 critical, life-saving functions simultaneously.
Okay, what's the first?
First, thermal regulation. The temperature fluctuations are extreme, plunging to minus 90 degrees Fahrenheit in the stratosphere.
Minus 90, so he'd freeze to death instantly.
Pretty much.
Second is oxygen supply, obviously, because there is no breathable air up there.
Right.
But the third function is the most terrifying. Pressure regulation. Let's talk about the Armstrong limit.
The Armstrong limit. This occurs around 19 kilometers or roughly 63,000 feet above sea level. At this altitude, the atmospheric pressure is so incredibly low that the boiling point of water drops to the normal temperature of the human body.
Wait, what do you mean? So what happens to the human body?
Well, if the spacesuit loses pressure, the water in the soft tissues of his lungs, his eyes, and his saliva will literally begin to boil.
Oh my God.
Yeah, his bodily fluids would vaporize because the vapor pressure exceeds the ambient atmospheric pressure. It's a condition called ebulism.
That is horrifying. So the suit literally keeps his blood from boiling.
Precisely. The suit must maintain an artificial pressurized atmosphere around his body to prevent the formation of gas bubbles in his bodily fluids.
And Paragon has to engineer a suit that is flexible enough to allow him to physically detach from the balloon and maneuver in free fall, but rigid and secure enough to hold a life-saving pressure differential in a near vacuum.
It's an engineering marvel.
And then, after hovering at that altitude, he has to disconnect and drop. Stepping off the platform means entering a free fall where the atmospheric density is so low, there is virtually no air resistance.
Right. And this presents a massive aerodynamic hazard. In a normal skydive, air resistance allows the jumper to use their limbs to control their orientation, to stay stable.
You push against the wind.
Exactly. But in the upper stratosphere, without air density to push against, a jumper can easily enter a flat spin.
An uncontrollable high-speed rotation, like a top spinning out of control.
Yes. And it pushes all the blood to the extremities, potentially causing fatal hemorrhaging in the brain or rendering the jumper completely unconscious before they even reach thicker air.
And there's no one up there to catch him. So this is where Thomas's 3,200 skydives and his expertise in psychological regulation become vital. He has to maintain absolute physical symmetry and neurological calm while accelerating to speeds that will easily exceed 1,000 miles per hour.
Breaking the sound barrier with his own body.
He will be experiencing a supersonic freefall before the thickening atmosphere eventually provides enough friction to slow him down so a parachute can safely deploy. The technical margins for error are virtually zero.
Zero.
Now, when you propose an operation this dangerous, with a massive helium balloon traversing commercial airspace, you don't just ask the FAA nicely, right?
Oh, definitely not.
The bureaucratic friction of getting flight clearances, visas for international teams, and government cooperation is immense. How does a charity from Poland secure airspace in the United States for a stratospheric stunt?
You utilize geopolitical leverage. And the Jump for the Planet documents reveal an incredible asset in this regard. They have the official patronage of Lech Walesa.
Wow. The former president of Poland, the leader of the Solidarity movement that helped topple communism in Eastern Europe, and a Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Exactly. The documents include official letters written by Lech Walesa directly to the United States government, specifically to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, advocating for Thomas and his team.
I mean, having a Nobel Peace Prize winner act as your bureaucratic battering ram changes the entire complexion of the project.
It completely legitimizes it. Walesa actually states in these letters that he is intimately familiar with Thomas's charitable track record. He writes that he views this jump not as a stunt, but as a vital impulse for global social change, emphasizing hope and planetary solidarity.
Yeah, when a historical figure of Walesa's magnitude vouches for you to a foreign government, it immediately clears the bureaucratic logjams.
Right. It signals to the FAA, the Department of Defense, corporate sponsors, and the global media that this is not a reckless daredevil act. It is a highly vetted, serious, globally recognized humanitarian effort.
Okay, so we have the aerospace engineering handled by Paragon, and we have the geopolitical bureaucracy handled by Lech Walesa, which brings us to the absolute climax of the entire endeavor. Because as wild as the supersonic freefall is, the true payload of this mission is what happens in the moments before Thomas jumps.
Yes. The plan outlined in the documents is for Thomas to reach the target altitude of 45 kilometers and simply hover there for 30 minutes.
30 minutes suspended at the edge of space.
Just looking down at the delicate panoramic sweep of the Earth, a view where political borders are invisible, where the atmosphere looks like a fragile razor-thin halo protecting everything we know from the harsh radiation of space.
And from that vantage point, he is going to deliver what the project calls a power speech.
Right, and this speech will not be recorded on a hard drive for a documentary a year later. The technological plan is to broadcast this speech live to millions, potentially billions, of people across the globe via YouTube.
Live from the stratosphere.
Yes.
Yes.
He intends to use that captive global audience, an audience drawn in by the extreme danger of the stunt, to deliver a direct plea to respect the planet and to financially support the 18 million climate and war refugees who have lost their homes.
But the detail that absolutely fascinated me from a psychological and symbolic standpoint is that Thomas intends to establish a live communication link with the astronauts currently aboard the International Space Station while he is hovering in the stratosphere.
This raises an important question about human unity, doesn't it? Think about the profound staging of that moment. You have the vast majority of humanity going about their lives on the surface of the Earth.
Down in the dirt.
Right. Then you have a handful of astronauts orbiting in the ISS, representing the absolute pinnacle of human technological exploration in the cosmos.
And suspended perfectly between those two domains, acting as a literal and communicative bridge, is Thomas Kozlowski.
It's incredible symbolism.
It is a deliberate, highly engineered piece of performance art designed to trigger a specific psychological phenomenon. Because in aerospace psychology, there is a well-documented concept called the overview effect.
Right. Coined by Frank White in the 1980s.
Yes. It describes the profound cognitive shift reported by astronauts when they view the Earth from space.
Because when astronauts see the planet as a single, unified, fragile system hanging in a void, it violently disrupts their localized nationalistic biases.
The borders disappear?
Exactly. The cognitive framework that separates us from them just dissolves. They return to Earth with a deep, almost overwhelming sense of planetary solidarity and a protective urge regarding the environment and human life.
And Thomas Kozlowski, the trauma psychologist, is essentially trying to weaponize the overview effect. He is trying to digitally transmit that cognitive shift to 1 billion people watching live on YouTube.
It's genius.
He isn't just saying, hey, look at this cool view. He is showing them the fragility of the entire system, calling the ISS to highlight human potential, and then immediately pivoting to say, down there, under that thin layer of clouds, 50,000 people lost their homes today. Here's a link to fund the modular eco-homes to save them.
It is the ultimate conversion of psychological awe into immediate, localized humanitarian action. He is leveraging a moment of maximum global vulnerability and wonder to fund a closed-loop supply chain that will put a physical roof over a traumatized child's head.
Which brings this entire epic narrative full circle. We started by looking at a man standing in a hospital room in Poland watching a 4-year-old girl named Marta slip away.
Yeah.
He experienced a catastrophic emotional blow, but instead of letting that grief metabolize into despair, he channeled it into logistics.
He took a highly unusual inventory of his own life. His mountain rescue expertise and intimate understanding of human trauma and the physical capability to survive thousands of skydives. And he forged all of that into a singular mechanism designed to keep a promise.
Yeah, the massive helium balloons, the complex thermodynamics of the Paragon spacesuit, the geopolitical leverage of Lake Tulesa, the engineering of zero-emission Lego block homes, the live broadcast from the edge of space, none of it is the point.
No.
All of those incredibly complex moving parts are simply the tools required to fulfill a promise whispered to a dying child. I will always take care of children like you.
It proves that extreme dedication and even extreme physical risk does not have to be an exercise in escapism or narcissism. When directed by profound empathy, it can become the ultimate act of global service.
Exactly. Thomas Kozlowski found a way to take the most niche, hyper-specific, and extreme skills he possessed and direct them entirely toward the greater good.
It's incredibly inspiring.
And that is the provocative thought I want to leave you with today. Imagine you are looking at your own resume, your own history, your own weird, highly specific combination of skills, passions, and risk tolerances. What unique capabilities do you have right now that could be weaponized for the greater good?
Right. What's your unique contribution?
Because you might not need to convince an aerospace company to let you jump from the stratosphere to change the trajectory of someone's life. So what is your jump going to be?
A phenomenal question to reflect on.
Thank you for joining us on this incredibly deep dive into the Jump for the Planet mission. Keep analyzing the world around you, keep asking the hard questions, and we will catch you next time.